Hello, everyone out there. Welcome to Air Talk, where we talk about all things financial. And I'm so excited today because this is week 3 of the Axe and Attorney series. And I have my good friend from Tuskegee University, my alma mater. And that's why I'm wearing this gray hat today, because I have my friend Tracy Dawson from Georgia, Tuskegee graduate, Howard graduate. But this is really exciting for me. I met Tracy. So anyway, we're going to talk about healthcare law today, employment law. Because it's COVID, we have lots of things going on today in this world. But prior to getting to that, I just wanted to talk about a couple things first. Let me tell you how I met Tracy. So we're in the cafeteria at Tuskegee. Tracy tries to cut me in line. No, I'm joking. Actually, no, but Tracy, I met Tracy there, and we just been friends ever since.
Yeah, that was 1991, so it's been quite some time.
Well, I didn't include the year on purpose, Tracy.
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
I don't want people to know how old I am.
And you're older than me. So
in the virtual world, I'm actually 25. Just so you know, I'm actually 25 in the virtual world. Okay, so I wanted to let's just talk about COVID. Let's talk about COVID first, and then I'm gonna go into the Black Lives Matter movement, and then we're gonna talk about looting. Okay, and you can talk about it in whatever order you want, but what do you want to talk about first before we go into your bio? I'm gonna go into that. I'm gonna go which one to talk about first. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. What does that mean to you? What does that movement mean to you? It doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah, well, it means a lot to me. Obviously, as a Black woman, and with Black family members, I have a Black son, I have a Black husband, Black father, Black brother, friends, and it's just not Black men that have been affected by, a lot of the things that have been happening, not just recently. I mean, now we've got a lot of attention, where a lot of attention has been placed on these incidents. These incidents have been going on for quite some time. And Black Lives Matter to me means, that we're coming together, we're organizing, and we're really, really uniting to put a stop to police brutality, to the oppressiveness that African Americans have experienced in this country, for centuries. And I feel very strongly about the movement. I support the movement. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, it's limited my participation as much as I would like to get out there and be a part of some of the peaceful protests. I just haven't been able to, and that's been somewhat difficult for me. But Black Lives Matter is an important movement right now. We need it. It's interesting because I was telling my son, he's 8, about Ahmaud Arbery and his situation, and he thought it happened in the 60s. And I was like, no, this happened in February. Like he was of the mindset of, oh, this must have happened, back in the 1960s in the civil rights movement. And that was profound to me because, I mean, we're talking about, 40 years later, this is still going on. And we really, really need to see some justice. We need to see some change. So, those are my thoughts. And I, certainly want to continue to support those efforts.
So in fact, that's what you're doing today. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You actually helping the movement. You actually helping people to answer questions, and that they just don't have a means to ask. So this show gives a voice for you to help people that are going to be in different situations, different things that are going on at work. Okay. So what I want to do first is I want to give Tracy's bio. Now I have all these pages of Tracy's bio, but I'm joking. But we got I'm gonna read it to you, okay? And so Tracy transition. Well, this is Tracy. I call her Tracy Sprinkles, Tracy Sprinkle Dawson now.
You can call me
Uh,
that. It's okay.
Tracy from
It's okay.
Tracy transitioned from healthcare to law. Um, she's always considered herself a health attorney because of her background and the fact that her practice has been solely focused in the healthcare industry. However, after many years and a tremendous amount of experience handling employment matters, she has worked very closely with and advised human resource departments on a full range of just about any and every employment matter that you could think of. Whew, man. So I'm tired. I'm tired of talking, Tracy.
It's okay. It's
Okay,
okay.
okay. Um, so let me see. Man, Tracy is the whole thing. So she works with terminations, layoffs, investigations, compliance, training, management issues. Um, also, she's what I have to all the schools you went to. You went like to 5 schools. I don't see there, but
You must be starting back like in primary school.
yeah.
You,
So basically, she got a nursing degree from Tuskegee University, and this is a story too. So she was a nurse, and she called me. She said, "Ed, I'm going to law school." I go, law school. Oh, that's great. So you're going to be a nurse, and an attorney. So then she said, "Well, Ed, I'm going to Howard." So here's my question: why did you choose Howard?
yeah, I chose Howard because for me it was the best place for me to go and obtain my legal education. And I would say Howard chose me. Howard is definitely the mecca, in my opinion, for African American students who want to work and learn from people who have been dedicated to, um, I guess, uplifting, our community and also educating our community and supporting our community. And Howard, to me, was the best choice. I had other options. I chose Howard because for me, there was no other choice. And it was the best decision I could have ever made. As you know, Kamala Harris, who I hope to be our future vice president come November, is a graduate of Howard, as well as Chadwick Boseman. And obviously, we're still mourning the loss of his greatness. And they are two examples of people who have, dedicated themselves in their own private rights, in their own respective rights, and have given service to our community, uplifted people in so many ways. And I'm just proud to be a part of that legacy.
So I've just heard. So in our city, Chicago, the looting was big, and I want to know what your thoughts of it. Was the looting a way for people to show what's um um uh, to to actually show what's going on in America? Or there what are your thoughts on looting? Because I've heard so many different things about people have different thoughts about that. What's your thought about the looting?
I don't support the looting.
Okay.
I think it's a distraction. I think that it's unnecessary. And I think it gives ammunition to other people to use against the purpose, you know what I'm saying, for the protest. I support peaceful protests. I think we need to walk in purpose. I think we need to show that, we're not going to conduct ourselves in ways that are undesirable, criminal activity. I would never support that. So I definitely disapprove of the looting. I wish it would stop. And I don't understand why people are doing it. I really don't.
So I want to take a brief break. This is Ed Talk, and we're talking about all things financial on IntellectualRadio.com. So let's kind of move forward, Tracy. So you are the founder and principal owner of the Sprinkle Dawson of the Sprinkle Dawson Law Firm, LLC, located in Conyers, Georgia. You are a member of the State Bar of Georgia, and you are admitted to practice before all superior courts in Georgia, the Supreme Court of Georgia, and the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. You actually began your career as a litigation associate at Austin. Tracy Sprinkle. She has sub she has subsequently served as in-house legal counsel for a combined total of 13 years at Grady Health Systems, Emory University, and Morehouse School of Medicine. She is also active in the state and and bar association, various non-for-profit organizations, and community affairs. So, being a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, I have to mention Delta Sigma Theta. Let me tell you why. It's not. She said, "Don't mention it." Okay. But anyway,
I didn't say don't mention
my mother was a Delta. My grandmother was a Delta. My sister is a Delta. Actually from Tuskegee. So I had to throw that in there. On that real
Well,
quick.
I definitely am. I love all sorors, especially your family members, and I am definitely a very proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So you can always mention it.
Okay, always mention.
I just didn't. I didn't. You didn't have to lead into it because the discussion was more focused on
because
on the law, but always.
Because usually I always lead with Kappa, but I'm not going to go with that.
Okay, so, it's okay.
So I want to talk about COVID. A lot of my friends and a lot of companies with COVID are actually allowing them to work from home. Some of my friends they have questions about, well, they actually have to go to work because they're essential. Um, the what are the laws surrounding that? What does that entail? Can a company actually tell you that you actually have to come to work, and is there any recourse for that? If you don't want to come to work, maybe you're you're in a place where you can't go to work, or maybe you just don't feel like you're ready to come back into that environment. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, well, I'd like to say, just leading into the whole COVID-19 topic, that this has been a major change for everyone. I mean, it's impacted everyone on some level, more than others, of course. I mean, my heart goes out to the people who have lost their loved ones. My heart goes out to people who have been ill, who are currently, recovering, and people who've lost their jobs. This has had a tremendous toll on the way we live, the way we socialize with each other, the way we interact with each other. Everything has changed like in a matter of months, and so we're all experiencing, to a certain degree, COVID-19 fatigue, as they call it. People are getting restless. They don't want to stay in their houses anymore, but this virus is still out there. So people are still trying to navigate that. And as far as teleworking is concerned, it depends on, what type of position you have. Do you work in a job where you can work from home? That's the first question. Because, if you're a waitress, then obviously you can't wait tables from home,
right.
So unfortunately, you're considered a frontline worker, and you have to face a risk every day when you go to work that you may be potentially exposed to COVID-19. And that's significant. And I don't think that's something that, people should, underestimate and say, oh, well, it's your job. Yeah, it is your job. But also when you go to work, who wants to go to work and feel like they're putting their life at risk? Especially, if you didn't sign up for that. If you're a firefighter or you're a police officer, then some may argue, or you're a military person, then some people may argue, well, you signed up, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But you know that it's a hazardous job, right? But being a waitress should not be a hazardous job, nor should working in a grocery store, right? You should, feel comfortable going to work. And so if you have to go to work, then it's your employer's obligation and responsibility to make sure that the workplace is safe. And so OSHA has, set forth guidelines to ensure that, that there are certain standards that are set and made in the workplace so that individuals can feel safe at work. And if you do have the opportunity to work from home, then your employer should set forth policies and procedures that will allow you the opportunity to work from home and be productive. I think that's the focus right now.
So what, as an employer, say I'm an employer, which I actually am, what type of health information can I ask my workers?
Well, I mean, you have to be cognizant of the fact that, and I want to make sure before we go any further, because I know we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure that I'm not giving any legal advice here, okay? I'm not establishing any type of attorney-client privilege with anyone right at this moment. I'm just giving general information. So in the event that, you or anyone who's listening, needs some legal advice, I definitely encourage you to consult with an attorney. But the purpose of today is just to provide general information. So, and this is not legal advice, but what I would encourage you to do, you as an employer, you have an obligation to make sure your workplace remains safe, right? So you want to, look at the CDC guidelines, as far as social distancing is concerned. You should, make your workplace one where if there has to be some type of physical interaction between employees, that should be as limited as possible. If, instead of calling a meeting in person, can you do a Zoom call? Like, everyone's getting tired of Zoom calls, but Zoom calls are safe calls, right? They're safe meetings. And make sure that you are always, listening to your employees too, as to what their concerns are in the workplace. Make sure that it's properly sanitized, make sure that people are wearing their masks when they come in contact with others. Those are the things that you as an employer, should be doing.
So say my employee thank you for that. Say my employee comes in the door, all right? Yes. What is it I can ask them? I mean, without going into anybody's privacy, what is it? Can I ask them if they have COVID? Can I ask them if I want to trace how they got it? Can I ask them that, or is that part of the CDC?
You can ask them. You can ask them, hey, have you been infected with COVID-19? Because you need to know that as an employer. You can also ask them, have you come in close contact with someone who is tested positive for COVID-19? You can, and if they have, then you can also say, well, I think I need for you to self-quarantine for 14 days in the event that you come in close contact or you have, been diagnosed with a positive COVID-19 test result yourself. Now, the law is shifting and changing, and the CDC guidelines are always wavering. So, everyone needs to keep abreast of, new information, because this is not set in stone as we see. People, as scientists learn more and more about this virus and how it works and how it's transmitted, this data may change. But essentially, those are the things that you as an employer can do. You can also do temperature checks if you want to do that when your employees enter the building. You can take their temperature. Just make sure that you safeguard that information in a place that is in compliance with your state privacy laws. Like, you just can't leave your log of temperatures out on your desk for everyone to see. Can't post them, obviously. Right. But I mean, there's some things that you as an employer can do to ensure that your employees are safe and you're safe. Because if you're working in the environment as well, I'm sure you want to maintain your safety also.
So, question, and I know this is going to be a sticky subject. Someone comes to my office. I found out, first of all, can I take their temperatures when they come in? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. I can do that, so I can have the little gun machine put to their
Not
head.
a gun.
I mean, not the gun, but the temperature gun, not a real gun.
Not a gun.
Not a gun. Temperature gun. I can take the temperature.
About this.
Okay.
Right.
Temperature gun, folks. Temperature gun, folks. Okay.
Okay. So I'm not trying to see you behind bars. Okay.
So then because then I'm gonna call you to come give me. You
cannot call me. I'm not a criminal law attorney at all. You would be in big trouble. But anyway, moving forward. Yes, you can take their temperature with a thermometer.
Okay. Okay. Also, now, I tell my employee that you have to go home 14 days in quarantine. Now it comes into a thing where do I have to pay? How does the pay come in? Because now I've told them that they have to go home. And so what if you can't work from home? Then what happens with the payment? How does that work? What are the guidelines for that? What do you think those are?
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the laws that were enacted early on, shortly back in March, shortly after we began to shelter in. But the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act was passed, and this was actually it was somewhat of an expansion of FMLA, where employees are given 2 weeks or up to 80 hours of pay if they have a medical condition that requires them to stay at home. They can't come into the workplace. Okay. Or if they have a family member and they are now a caregiver and they have to provide care for those family members. So those 80 hours of time are allotted, and I understand that a tax credit would be available to you as an employer for reimbursement of that pay that you give to that employee.
Well, thank you. I didn't know that, and now I know. I think I owe some of my workers some money now. No, I'm joking. I don't know anybody. But
yeah, and so and that was really good. I think 80 hours should cover it, and of course that's for full-time workers. And I just want to make sure that it's all eligible employees, so you have to meet the eligibility requirements. And also there is and you talked about teleworking, and now me as a mom, I should say, I have a son who is doing virtual school right now. So like, what if now, I don't have COVID-19. I didn't test positive for COVID-19, or I don't have a family member who tested positive, but I have a son who is at home, or a child, I should say, who's at home, and he or she can't go to school, and that means, and I cannot leave that child at home alone. So what is available to me? So there was another part of that act, and it was an expansion of the it's an Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, which is FMLA, as we all know what FMLA is. And this was emergency, and this is actually eligible to, to employees whose employers have 500 employees or less, that you can take up to an additional 10 weeks of time at home, paid time, I should say, at home to take care of their children if they are in virtual school. If their schools are closed, okay, I want to make sure that's clear, and or if their daycare is closed. So those are the two requirements to take advantage of that extended leave period.
Okay, thank you. I also want to say we are taking questions on the Facebook Live chat, and you can also call in to 708-223-8953. The number again is 708-223-8953, and we are on IntellectualRadio.com. So that's some great information, Tracy. Great information.
I think it's important that people know that there are some options, because a lot of parents right now, they feel really, really stressed about, I'm at home. I have the privilege of being at home, and I'm not a teacher. This is all new to me. We're learning this new landscape of virtual learning, and it's just challenging. But I cannot imagine having the pressure of, and I need to be at work, and if I don't go to work, how do I pay my bills? That's just a lot to take on. So, right now, people are really, really, really dealing with these issues in real time, especially as schools reopen. Holiday, this is Labor Day weekend, and that's why I actually have my lawyerish shirt on.
I like that shirt, by the way. I love that shirt.
I'm lawyering.
I love that lawyer shirt.
Yeah.
Can I have one?
It is a holiday, so I just decided to be a little relaxed and fun. But
can I get one, Tracy? Cowboy shirt. Can you send me a shirt? A shirt.
Get you a shirt.
A lawyer's shirt.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And my brother, Sprinkle Creations, he designs shirts.
So really? I didn't know that.
Check him out. Yeah, check him out. Check him and
check
my
him out.
What's
his website? You might as well go just throw it out there now. You know his website offhand that they can call him.
They're on Facebook. It's Sprinkle Creations.
Sprinkle Creations. Sprinkle Creations.
Yeah. I've got to give them a shout out. So, and they do a great job.
Okay.
So, but okay. So we're in Georgia. We start school early, right? So we started school maybe the last couple of weeks. Schools have been starting, but across the country, most schools start after Labor Day. So now you're going to see this becoming an even bigger problem with schools trying to reopen, closing, opening, closing, college campuses having all of these high COVID-19 numbers, just trying to figure out what's the best way to stay safe, as well as to continue to educate children and young people.
So what I've been finding, I've been talking to a couple of my clients who actually have to go to work. So they've been actually hiring like kind of semi-babysitters and they've been like in pods of like 3 or 4 where they may have someone come in and just make sure that the students are on their laptop. Actually, I'm following that schedule because, these parents have to go to work. You know what I mean? What do you think about, but I'm also seeing where one of the babysitters, she has like 9 or 10 kids. And I just didn't think that was safe because you don't know where those kids are coming from. And now you bring 9 kids into this house.
I want to say that, people do what they have to do. You know what I'm saying? And I applaud people trying to be creative, trying to make sure that they're balancing the need to go to work as well as, making sure that their kids are getting the education that they need and the quality of education that they need. And hopefully they're properly supervised. But you really do need to be careful about the people that the students that your kids are around, because you don't know what's going on in their homes, you know what I'm saying, and whether or not their families are also practicing, safe habits as it pertains to wearing a mask. Are they social distancing when they're out with others? And so when you bring your child in an environment, your children in an environment where, these other kids, they're saying children may be super spreaders. I know you may have heard that term. That's questionable. So while they may be asymptomatic, then your child could also obviously contract the virus and then bring it home to your home, bring it home to you and your loved ones. So, those are some of the concerns that, people should have when they, develop these pods, making sure that everyone is on the same page about how they're, living during this time and how they're managing their safety provisions.
So what about, I'm an employer again, and my employee comes into my office, and then I find out they have COVID. Now, when I find out they have COVID, what are the guidelines? Because I'm gonna have to tell the other employees that they happen to have come in contact with. How do I do that? Because I don't know how I would do that. Would I tell them that they have COVID, or
you cannot tell the other employees that Tracy Dawson has COVID-19? Okay, and a lot of people have said, well, that's a HIPAA violation. Well, no, it's not a HIPAA violation because you're not a covered entity under HIPAA. HIPAA only applies to hospitals, health systems, insurance companies. That's medical offices. There are certain types of entities that are covered under HIPAA, but there are state medical privacy laws that you have to adhere to. I'm not familiar with the laws in Illinois, but I'm sure that there probably is some prohibition on you disclosing that information. However, your employees do have a right to know that they've come in close contact with another person who tested positive for COVID-19 because they have to take precautions for themselves.
So how do I do that? I mean, so you just said that I can't say that the person has COVID, but we need to know. So how do I give the information to the person who has been infected with the COVID?
Well, I would say this: if you have 3 people, it's you and 2 other people working in your office.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, let's say it's the receptionist and your assistant and you. Okay. I'm just, making up, positions. Right. And all of a sudden the receptionist is at home because she's quarantined, right? And so now you have to go tell your assistant, hey, you've come in close contact with someone in the office who has COVID-19. You cannot say it was Jenny who has COVID-19, because that also may be a violation of the American Disabilities Act. So you have to be very careful about the information you disclose. But you can say you've come in close contact. This is the information I am able to share with you. You've come in close contact with someone who was tested positive for COVID-19, or who has been in close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. And you should get tested yourself. Those are the things that I recommend you tell them.
Okay, so we have a caller on the line. Caller, what's your name and where you're from?
Hi, my name is Dr. Candace Cofield. I'm from the Bay Area.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing well, and you?
I'm great.
So I have a question. I love the conversation so far. My question is if the lawyer could speak to some of the privacy issues that are involved with students having to do distance learning or do their remote learning online. I'm in education. I work in education, and that's come up a lot in terms of teachers being a little concerned about the privacy issues embedded in doing distance learning.
What privacy issues are you referring to exactly?
So you know how teachers use different platforms, like just even let's say they're on Zoom and they want to record the session. Of course, some school districts have generic acceptable use forms and policies and things like that, but teachers still feel a little wary, either recording their sessions where, the student's face is being shown, or the Zoom bombing, of course, is an issue, or using other platforms other than Zoom, just different online tools. But having students document things, write things, and it's online, and maybe it could be something inappropriate, or maybe they don't know it's the student, just those types of issues.
Well, I would say that it is certainly an issue. And I know that FERPA, which is, is the law that governs student privacy, it actually has provisions that, I don't think that there have been any updates to FERPA as it pertains to this COVID-19 situation and virtual learning, but remote learning, distance learning, that's been, taking place, for several years now. So I would think your institution or your college would have, the consent forms, you have the students sign consent forms and confidentiality agreements at the forefront, at the beginning of the semester or the quarter, that would protect you as an instructor as well as the institution. If you're concerned about, privacy violations as it pertains to the student. I know that there have been instances recently, with, virtual learning, taking place in primary and secondary schools with, people being concerned about things that go on in the background of the home. And that being broadcast, to others. People are saying, should people have to turn their cameras on during instruction? And then some schools require the cameras on. I right now, this is just kind of evolving. It's an evolving area of law. I don't think there's any real precedent, and I think it really depends on your state and what your state privacy laws are. Here in Georgia, we really don't have laws that govern that, but right now, at least, that I'm aware of. But I would say that having the proper consents and authorizations signed by the students and the instructors is definitely the best practice.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a good question. I didn't even think about that. The fact that I've seen these Facebook videos where I just saw one the other day where the student was in class. You know, they had their shirt on, kind of way. I saw your son. He had his school shirt on, and he's in front of the computer. And then his mother is in the background. She walks in, and she's smoking a cigarette, and she comes in the camera. She's like, "Oh, sorry." I mean, so she's talking about those type of things that I think that people are talking about that happen in the background. You know, your mother, the brother, and so those kind of things that I think are really real that happen at home that we don't really talk about when you have a virtual.
Yeah, because you're really you're inside someone's home when you're on Zoom. And some people may consider it maybe an intrusion of their privacy. And there was one really sad incident where a student, and I'm just going to share this briefly, but a student's mother was murdered while she was in class, a young girl. Really? Because the boyfriend came into the home, and the other students and the teacher heard a commotion. I mean, all this took place while she's, in school, and so those children have to be counseled now. So, it's really important for the schools to make sure that the parents are familiar, with the policies as it pertains to, what is appropriate, for the background, what goes on. Like in my son's school, all cameras are on and microphones are muted, because we don't need to hear what's going on in other people's homes. But there are definitely some privacy issues associated with virtual learning right now.
Okay. So we have another caller, Tracy.
Okay.
Caller, where are you from and what's your name?
Hi, my name is Veronica.
Hi, Veronica.
And hi. I was calling with a question in regards to employee rights protection. I don't know if you've answered this already. I actually ended up listening in a little late, but what protection does an employee have if their employer wants them to come back into the office to work for a position that could be done remotely, but they have children that are still learning remotely or doing distance learning? Does that employee have any recourse or any protection under employment law for that?
Yeah, we spoke about that earlier. It depends on the size of your employer. If they have 500 employees or less, then you are there was a recent law enacted, the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, which is an expansion of FMLA that will allow employees to take up to an additional 10 weeks of paid leave if their children have to attend virtual school and or if their regular daycare center is closed.
Okay. And under family medical leave, I know usually you are not paid. So is that
it's paid leave?
Change?
It is paid leave, and you do not have to exhaust your sick time first. And there is no waiting period. Also,
I did not know that.
Wonderful.
That's a great question, Veronica. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'd also like to add that I know there are a lot of teachers who are, really concerned about going back into the workplace as well because for health reasons and because they have underlying medical conditions. And I actually have a friend who has an underlying medical condition. She does not want to go back into the workplace. And actually, our school is virtual. But the teachers are required to come back into the school building to teach. And so she contacted her human resources department and requested a reasonable accommodation so that she can work from home. Of course, she had to get proper medical documentation to present, showing that she did have an underlying condition and it was approved. But, there are certain avenues that you can take. I think you really need to work very closely with your human resources department to make sure that you understand what your rights are, what you're entitled to, and also, making sure that you stay safe and that you keep other people around you safe. And, for people who have underlying medical conditions, it is very important that you manage your health. Like, that is the most important thing. And that fear is real. And I don't think that we can minimize it. I know people like, we want schools open, but what about the teachers? I know the students may be suffering, and I get that part. But we also need to be aware that there are some teachers who've been teaching for many, many years, who have dedicated their lives to education. And they're just afraid right now because they obviously don't want to get sick, nor do they want to get other people in their home sick.
So I want to talk about retaliation and whistleblowing. Let's talk about that. So I am that teacher, and I have that underlying condition, and I am not coming into work. And boss says, "Well, you don't come to work, you're fired." What do I have on my side as a worker?
Well, okay, that's not retaliation.
What is that?
I mean, if you're a frontline worker, you can't work from home because of the type of position that you have, and you don't meet any of the other qualifications for emergency leave, then your employer can certainly terminate you. And I mean, you may be entitled to unemployment benefits. That's something that you should certainly look into. But retaliation is if you, for example, I have a client where she was complaining about the fact that she didn't have PPE, and she's a nurse, and she was seeing patients and out taking care of patients. They did not provide PPE early on when there was a shortage, but she complained about it, which she should have. It was unsafe, and she was actually terminated for that.
Wow.
And so, we filed a claim because that you cannot fire someone for filing a complaint for an unsafe work environment. And if you feel, let me just make sure I want to share this with everyone. If you feel your workplace is unsafe, you can contact OSHA, because OSHA has a complaint form. It's online. It's an anonymous process. If you choose to remain anonymous, and let them know, hey, there's something going on in my workplace that's hazardous, and they're not following, the guidelines as it pertains to a safe workplace, you can file a complaint, and an investigation will be conducted by either OSHA or the state agency that they have developed a relationship with to conduct those investigations.
So when does a person go to? Tell me about the EEOC. Like so say I do have a complaint at work. On what point do I contact the EEOC? And I'll explain what the EEOC is for those who don't know.
Okay, well, in order for you to file a complaint with the EEOC, there's certain criteria that you have to meet. I mean, people say, well, I'm going to sue my employer for firing me. And it depends on what type of state you live in. Like, Georgia is an at-will state. So you can be fired at any time, right? You can't just, unless you have a contract. At any given time, your employer can come in and say, hey, it's just not working out for us anymore. So I need to let you go. But you can't file a lawsuit for that reason. You can only file a lawsuit if there is some type of discrimination that's occurred in that decision-making process, as for the basis of your for the basis of your termination. For example, you were terminated on the basis of your race, your age, your sex, your national origin, your religion. Those are protected classes. And if you are a member of those protected classes, then you can file a claim that you've been terminated as a result of the fact that you are a member of that class. If you complain and say, hey, I feel like I'm being treated unfairly in the workplace right now because of my race, then you get fired because you filed a complaint. Then that's retaliation. And then, that's another claim that you can bring before the EEOC. And so the EEOC is a federal agency that is actually it is actually an agency, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, where you would go to them, meet with an agent. They have agents there, and you would file a complaint, which is called a charge. And once you file that complaint and charge, then the EEOC would then investigate to make a determination if there is a valid claim, and if you have indeed a valid case to bring forth. they may actually file a lawsuit on your behalf, or they may give you what's called a right to sue letter, so that you can then go, hire your lawyer, of course. I would recommend and file a claim against that employer based upon the action that occurred during the term of your employment.
So, since I'm in the financial industry, first of all, again, this is Ed Beavers. I'm here talking about all things financial with Tracy Dawson, attorney at law from Conyers, Georgia, and I'm on IntellectualRadio.com. As a financial consultant, I want to talk about ERISA claims. Okay. And and as kind of like the bottom of 401ks fall out, pension plans, and I know we've been hearing around the country, we don't have enough to fund pensions in different states. 401ks are not being handled correctly. Also with the pension plans as well. So what is the recourse that I would have as a employee if my company didn't handle my pension correctly, and now I don't have any money? It's gone.
Yeah, your employer, and as an employer yourself, your employer has a fiduciary duty to make sure that they maintain your retirement funds in due order, right? And so I'm not an ERISA lawyer. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But we do anticipate seeing there is going to be an avalanche of cases that come forward related to ERISA claims because of mismanagement of retirement funds and not fulfilling that fiduciary duty. But I'm not an ERISA lawyer, so that's kind of outside of my scope, and I don't want to.
Oh no, I understand. I just thought I would talk about that because
I think it's a great topic, and I think people definitely need to pay close attention to their retirement funds, their mutual funds, and see how their employers are managing those funds during this time period.
Yeah, because a lot of states, I mean, people talk about SSI, and everybody thinks that SSI is not going to be here, once we get 65. It's going to be here. That's my thought, and I think I'm pretty accurate. That SSI is going to be here. Agree. Now, will it be here in the same? Go ahead.
As far as time is concerned, can I take a quick break? I'm so sorry. Can we take a quick 1-minute break?
Sure.
Okay, I apologize. 1-minute break.
Okay, no problem. So, as far as you can go. So, as far as SSI, it's going to be here. Okay, folks, it's going to be here. Now, will it be around in the same form that we see SSI in the way it is now? I don't think it's going to be here in the same form. I just think I just don't think that we've done as a country the things that we are supposed to do to actually make sure that SSI is still here. It's still here once I hit 65. I think I'm 25 now. No, I'm joking. I'm actually 48. So I'm thinking that I'm going to retire actually at 65. So okay. I'm not sure if it's going to be here in the same. It will be here, but not in the same form as it was in the past.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're all worried about that and all concerned. So we shall see. Well. Hold on. Do you have any other callers on the line?
Yeah, hold on just a moment. We have a caller. Caller, where are you from and what's your name?
Yvette.
Hello, caller.
Yes, I'm here.
What's your name and where you from?
My name is Yvette. I'm in the Bay Area.
Okay. Hi, Yvette. My sister, by the way.
Hi, Yvette.
Hey, Tracy.
Hello.
So I didn't have a question. I just kind of had a statement of what you could do if someone is has COVID in your office.
Well, you're asking if they're in the office currently, positive for COVID, and everyone is aware that they have COVID-19, what can be done?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's similar what we do in the school district. If a child has lice or a child has hand, foot, and mouth, those are things that younger kids get. So I was saying, we pass out letters, to everyone in the classroom that this child had, or a child in the classroom has been exposed to this. It's kind of the same thing. That's what I was saying. How he could, how you can tell somebody in the office. We don't name the child. We just kind of say the condition, and then we send a letter home to every child in the classroom.
And Yvette, I think that's what's been happening a lot here in Georgia. We've had schools that have opened in other counties, and that's been the case where they've been sending those letters home, and they've also been making it public, to the news media, that there have been children in the classrooms and this particular school. They identify the school. They identify the classroom, and so they're trying to really narrow it down so they can also do the contact tracing. And so I think what Ed's situation is, when it's a small business, when you have 3 people working in the office, that's when it becomes a little bit more complicated, because it's difficult to hide their identity when there's only 3 people and really 2 people here in the office. But you still have an obligation not to identify who that individual is. I mean, it may be quite obvious to everyone who that person, may be. If there's only 5 people and one person's, not here in the office and they're out for, 2 weeks, then I think that it's kind of hard for an employer to maintain that. I guess they can maintain the confidentiality, but I think people are smart enough to figure it out on their own. But I agree with you that sending out notices, especially if you have an office or you're in the classroom and the school district has an obligation to notify those parents that their child has been exposed. And then the school has to have their own protocol set up as to how they're going to handle it from that point forward. And are they now going to quarantine the students that were in that classroom? And so now things are really shifting with the CDC, where they're saying, hey, if you're a teacher, you're considered an essential worker. And if you're asymptomatic, then maybe you can come back to work earlier. And that's creating a lot of, I don't know, for me, a lot of angst amongst, it would be for me, a lot of angst amongst other teachers, because they're like, well, even if that teacher is asymptomatic, they can still transmit this virus. I really would prefer for that teacher to, stay home for that entire, 14-day quarantine period. But the problem is, if you start, quarantining all of the teachers, then who's left to teach the children? And I think that's one of the throws that we're facing right now, is that if you start sending teachers home because they have tested positive or been exposed, then you now face a teacher shortage.
Well, that's a great point, Tracy. And so we always have a wrap-up question and answer. I call this segment Ask the Guest. So I'm going to give you 2 choices, and you can only choose one of the 2 choices. I know attorneys like to, they like to do their own thing, but these are the rules, Miss Tracy Dawson. Okay.
Yes.
So
I'm ready.
Here we go.
I feel like I'm on Jeopardy or Family Feud.
Here we go.
Okay.
Michelle Obama or Oprah?
Michelle Obama all day.
Okay. iPhone or Android? I think I lost you, Tracy. Tracy? Hello, Tracy. I think she He's here. I'm here. Okay, so I'm going to switch the questions to the people who are on Facebook Live, and I want you guys to chime in for me. So the next question is iPhone or Android? I want you guys to check in. For me, is definitely iPhone, but of course, Joycelyn Barrett just because Tracy's phone went out, which is an iPhone. She said that's a good reason to choose Android. My next question: how about Hulu or Netflix? Hulu or Netflix? You know, I think I'm gonna say Hulu. That's my choice. That's my choice. Next one is Luther Vandross or Stevie Wonder. Man, that was a hard one. That's a hard one right there. Luther Vandross or Stevie. Guys, I'm gonna have to go ahead and all I do is think about you, and I'm gonna have to go with Stevie Wonder. Now here's an even harder one. Prince or Michael Jackson. It gets harder. It just gets harder. I'm gonna go with Prince. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Prince on that one. We have Tracy. I've asked you this question before, so I'm gonna ask her. Tuskegee or Howard? Joycelyn said Stevie, but good. That was a good choice. So Tuskegee or Howard? I'm gonna have to go with Tuskegee on that one. The next one is for all my Atlanta folks. I'm sorry, but this is the Atlanta Falcons or the Chicago Bears. I know I'm gonna get some feedback on that, but that's okay. I am a Chicago Bears fan, whether they're 0-16 or 16-16. But honestly, I think we can beat the Atlanta Falcons even when we're 0-16. But I want to thank Tracy again, Tracy Dawson, for joining us today on Ed Talk that comes on every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on IntellectualRadio.com. And so since Tracy dropped off, I wasn't able to say, as I always say, peace. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.